Paris, 1925. The war is over. But France is exhausted. The country is rebuilding. The money is thin. The public is tired. And in the center of the city, rising above the rooftops, stands a monument that many Parisians still hate, the Eiffel Tower. Today, it is untouchable, a symbol, a postcard, a global icon. But back then, it was something else. To many people, it was ugly, temporary, expensive, and inconvenient. It had been built for the 1889 World's Fair, not forever, just long enough to impress the world. Writers mocked it. Artists despised it. Critics called it a scar on Paris. And by the 1920s, the tower had a real problem: maintenance. It was made of iron, and iron rusts. Painting it cost a fortune. Repairs cost even more. Every year, the bills grew. Newspapers complained. Officials argued. And people started to wonder a dangerous thing. What if the Eiffel Tower had become too expensive to keep? That question, half rumor, half frustration, was all one man needed. His name was Victor Lustig. And he was not a businessman, not a politician, not an engineer. He was a con artist, one of the greatest who ever lived. He had many faces, many accents, many passports, many lies. He could walk into a room and become whoever the moment required: a count, a diplomat, a broker, a gentleman. He dressed well, spoke softly, and understood something most criminals never do. People do not only believe greed, they believe appearances. They believe confidence. They believe paperwork. They believe the right room, the right car, the right tone of voice. Above all, they believe what flatters them. Victor Lustig knew this better than anyone. He had already conned people across Europe and America. He sold fake machines, ran fake investment schemes, and charmed his way through city after city. But in Paris, he saw a bigger opportunity. Not a pocket, not a suitcase, not a banknote, a monument. He read a newspaper report about the Eiffel Tower. It mentioned the cost of upkeep, the public debate, the growing headache for the city. Most people would read that and move on. Lustig saw a door. He began planning immediately. The genius of the scam was not just the lie. It was the choice of victim. He did not target random people on the street. He targeted men who were already used to buying and selling metal. Scrap dealers. Men who looked at old machinery, broken rails, industrial leftovers, and saw profit. To them, the Eiffel Tower was not a symbol. It was 7,000 tons of metal, a gigantic pile of money. So Lustig built the illusion. He printed official-looking documents, used government language, created credentials, and selected a setting that would do half the work for him: a luxury hotel, the kind of place where powerful men met behind closed doors. He sent invitations to a small group of scrap dealers, private invitations, confidential ones. The message was simple. The government had decided quietly to dismantle the Eiffel Tower. The operation was politically sensitive. The public would be outraged. So the matter had to remain secret until contracts were signed. To the dealers, this sounded insane, but not impossible. That is what made it perfect. A bad con is ridiculous. A great con lives 1 inch from reality. The cost of maintaining the tower was real. The political sensitivity was real. The secrecy made sense. And the chance to win the contract was enormous. So one by one, the dealers arrived. Well-dressed, cautious, excited. Lustig welcomed them as a senior government official. Calm, measured, professional. He showed them documents, explained the burden of maintenance, spoke about internal debate, and hinted that the decision, though painful, had already been made. Then he did something brilliant. He took them to see the Eiffel Tower, not as tourists, as bidders. They looked up at it differently now, not as a landmark, as inventory. They imagined the beams, the rivets, the transport, the resale. The tower was becoming money in their minds. And once that happened, the con was already halfway done. But Lustig was hunting for more than belief. He wanted the right mark, not the smartest man in the room, not the richest, the most insecure, because insecurity is easier to steer than greed. He found him, a scrap dealer named André Poisson. Poisson wanted legitimacy. He wanted status. He wanted to prove he belonged among bigger men. Lustig could feel it. Poisson was cautious. The perfect target. So Lustig invited him to a private meeting, away from the others, away from the formal setting, away from witnesses. And there, the con entered its final form. Lustig dropped the mask slightly. He suggested that, as a public official, his salary was modest. The position carried dignity, yes, but not enough money. He did not ask directly, not at first. He let Poisson arrive at the idea himself, a bribe. That was the masterstroke. Because now the scam felt even more real. Corruption made it believable. A perfectly honest process might have seemed suspicious, but a private payoff, that felt like the real world. Poisson no longer thought, could this be fake? He thought, this is how powerful deals are done, so he paid. He handed over money for the contract, and extra money for the bribe. Victor Lustig took it, kept his composure, and disappeared. By the time Poisson realized the truth, the con artist was gone. The Eiffel Tower was still standing. The government knew nothing. And one scrap dealer had been humiliated on a historic scale. But here is the part that makes the story unbelievable. Poisson said nothing. No public complaint. No loud scandal. No immediate police storm. Why? Because shame is a con artist's greatest accomplice. Poisson had not just lost money. He had been fooled, manipulated, and made ridiculous. To admit it publicly would be to announce to the world that he had tried to buy one of the most famous landmarks in Europe through a secret corrupt deal, so he stayed quiet. And that silence gave Lustig something priceless: confidence. He had just sold the Eiffel Tower and gotten away with it. Most criminals would stop there. One impossible victory. One perfect escape. Victor Lustig went back and tried to do it again. That is what separates ordinary fraud from legend. The second time, he used the same basic method, same story, same pressure points, same type of victim. And for a moment, it worked again, because the lie was still powerful. The tower was still expensive. The documents still looked official. The settings still felt credible. But lightning rarely strikes twice for long. This time, one of the targets grew suspicious. Questions were asked. The atmosphere changed. Lustig sensed the danger. And he did what great con artists do best. He vanished before the room caught fire. He fled Paris. The second sale did not end as cleanly as the first, but the legend was already secured. He had sold the Eiffel Tower twice. That sounds like a joke, a riddle, a movie pitch. But it happened, and it tells us something unsettling. The scam was never really about the tower. It was about human nature. Victor Lustig did not need people to be stupid. He needed them to want something. Status, profit, access, advantage. He needed them to believe they had been invited into a secret world, a world above ordinary rules. That is where fraud becomes powerful, not when the lie is huge, when the lie makes the victim feel special. That was Lustig's real product, not metal, not contracts, importance. If you were invited, you were not just a bidder, you were an insider. And insiders do not ask the same questions as outsiders. They do not slow down. They do not want to look naive. They do not want to lose the deal. So they rush themselves into the trap. Years later, Lustig would build his reputation further. He ran more scams, crossed more borders, fooled more people. In America, he would become linked to another famous fraud: counterfeiting. He sold a device called the money box, a machine he claimed could print real cash. The trick was elegant. He loaded it with a few genuine bills, fed them out slowly, and convinced buyers the machine needed time to work. By the time they realized it was fake, Lustig was gone with the payment. Again, it was not just the trick. It was the theater, the waiting, the demonstration, the polished explanation, the sense that the buyer had found forbidden knowledge. That pattern kept repeating. Different object, same weakness, greed mixed with ego, hope mixed with secrecy. And for years, it worked. Law enforcement chased him across countries. Names changed. Stories changed. But the core method stayed the same. He made people complicit in their own deception. That is why so many victims stayed quiet. To report the fraud was to reveal their own vanity, or greed, or corruption. And that silence protected him. Intelligence is not immunity. Sometimes it is fuel. A smart person can invent sophisticated reasons to trust the wrong thing. Victor Lustig understood that decades before the internet, before phishing, before crypto fraud, before fake investment platforms, he understood that the cleanest way to rob someone is to let them feel superior while it happens. And that was the chance for Victor to rob them. He did this for many years, but years later police arrested him. and he ended up being in jail for his crimes. Subscribe.